Well, I think twofold. First of all, the soldiers, who are perfectly entitled, by the way, to remain within their base, within the Crimea, I don't think any where there is a problem. Number two, there seems to be increasing evidence of a military buildup on Ukraine's border of somewhere close to about 60,000 soldiers, something like 300 pieces of military artillery. Now that could be spring maneuvers, call it what you want, but I think something else is going on here.
And an increase, of course, in US troops on the Ukrainian border as well, which was announced yesterday.
Yeah, look, I've argued on your program recently. I think that, frankly, if Putin continues his aggressive moves within Ukraine, we should move the front line of NATO right back into Poland and the Baltic states to defend them. Because if Putin is using the pretext of protecting Russian speakers by going into Ukraine, he'll probably be thinking about Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia next. And I think we want to prevent that from happening.
Many, of course, commentators would poo-poo that and say that's not at all likely. The fact is, Putin has been regarded as being provoked into
perhaps you're right, but given Putin's moves lately, I wouldn't have thought he would have gone into Ukraine. But it looks like that's exactly what he's doing.
So how come NATO is now encircling Russia, as the Russians are very concerned that there was an agreement back in 1991 that there will be no encirclement, no provocations from NATO, and now we're seeing many anti-missile defense bases, NATO bases, set up encircling Russia. Has Putin not been pushed into this?
Yeah. No, he hasn't. No, I think this is, once again, unfortunately, a crisis of Putin's own making. I think he was falling in the polls domestically. Maybe he felt he had to do something. He went into Georgia in 2008, and now he's thinking about doing the same in Ukraine. It's all about Putin's ego, his poll ratings, and his standing in the Russian people.
And what about the idea that people with Russian origins feel that they could well be persecuted? Indeed, indications that there's an extremist element within the Kiev government who indeed talked about outlawing Russian as an official language in Ukraine just a few days ago. Has he not a right to protect the rights of ethnic Russians in a neighbouring country?
No, no more than the British would be to go into Ireland or anywhere else where they've been historically. No, I totally disagree with that. There are international norms and international behaviour. If he's got a problem, go through the United Nations like every other civilized country. He's behaving like a mafia boss and a mafia state.
So can I ask you then about the extremist element within the Kiev government? Is the EU, the European governments and the West choosing to ignore that element?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear what your question was again.
The extremist elements within the Kiev government now, why is that actually being ignored by your government and indeed the West?
Again, I'm missing that initial word. What settlement?
The extremist elements, the ultra-nationalists who clearly
the extremist element.
Kiev government.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's again a very good question. The thing is, there are extremists frankly, not just in Ukraine, but elsewhere, in Greece, in Poland, and many countries in Europe. Unfortunately, though, that's a weak argument because they represent an absolute minority of the Ukrainian people. The Ukrainian people are a peaceful people. They want to have their country back. They don't wish to see their country being invaded, even harshly, by Russia.
Well, Mark, it's great to talk to you. You did mention us being a propaganda channel, but we do, of course, get people on the other side of the story. They're
absolutely, and I'm always delighted to be on to add a little balance to your program.
And that's exactly why we asked you. So thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate talking to you. Two sides to every story. Great to hear your point of view. Thank you. UK Conservative Party member, Brooks Newmark.
Great. Thank you.